You've described your work as pleasure activism, and you've talked about pleasure activism as a cornerstone, as the route from which we may take action to change the world. Could you tell us a bit more about pleasure activism?
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be amongst all of you. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. And I really love that art really is for everyone, and how can we empower ourselves to feel like we can all individually play a role in that. So I think pleasure activism fits right in there. So I am a violist, as Nisha mentioned. I've spent most of my life, started at the age of 4, training in the art of listening. And I've become really attuned to how to listen to the things around me, to the things outside of me. And it wasn't until I discovered the practice of pleasure that I realized I learned how to listen inside, how to listen to my body. And that is very much the root of this work, and it was transformational in my life. So I'm going to talk about what pleasure activism is. I'm going to talk a little bit about the paradigm that we find ourselves in, the challenges to our bodies in the world that we live in, and the way in which pleasure can improve our health and well-being and reorder the world. So pleasure activism, there's actually a book by this title by Adrienne Marie Brown, if any of you are familiar with their work. And pleasure activism asserts that we all need and deserve pleasure, and that our social structures, societal structures, must reflect this. So pleasure activism is the work that we do to reclaim our whole satisfiable selves from the impacts of things like capitalism, colonization, supremacy, systems that try to kind of steal that from us. So when I talk about pleasure, I am talking about a feeling of deep aliveness in your body, deep satisfaction in your body, that you can receive through your senses when you are really present. So a couple of examples. Maybe some of you are going to the concert tonight, but maybe you've had this experience before. You're taking in music, and there are these specific moments that feel like they send chills through your body. You feel a sense of like, okay, that just came through me in one of my senses, and I'm like completely moved and alive. That is pleasure. Picking a piece of fruit off a tree and biting into it, and the life force energy is still pulsing in the fruit, and that can then come through your body in the same way, and you just are like, oh my God, I feel so alive in this moment. So you're really, really present to your senses. So now I want to talk about a little bit of the challenge of the paradigm we live in. So I think we all know that, or all agree, that our bodies are really, really important to our human experience. And yet, the systems we live in train us, teach us to dismiss our bodies, to override them, to use them and abuse them, to extract from them in the same ways that we do to the earth. It's the same thing, right? It's how do we take, and not a lot of thought to reciprocity, not a lot of thought to giving, and actually the practice of receiving through the body, giving back to the body. So pleasure is an incredible tool in doing that. And I want to say also that the arts, as I said earlier, the arts are an incredible way to receive pleasure. So as we develop a practice of pleasure, and in order to receive pleasure, really, 3 things have to be true. One is that you are slowing down the way in which you are operating. So the tempo of our senses is slow. In order to really register what something feels like in your body, even just to listen to the pace of your words, if you really listen to every single word you're saying, you have to move more slowly. So that happens. You have to be present. I know everybody talks about this, but really present in the moment of what is in front of you. Otherwise, you're not receiving it as pleasure. And then the last thing is you start to listen to your body. You start to realize that there are things that you're taking in that are having an impact in your body. So there's an attunement there that starts to form. And then I would say, as you are in this practice, and we were talking about this earlier, it's a real muscle, any of these tools that we're talking about today. starting to build that muscle, if you really develop that muscle, 3 really big changes start to take place. So the first one is something that Sonia Renee Taylor, another activist author, calls radical self-love, which is this deep feeling of enoughness, of worthiness, of our bodies as divine, not as a battleground, not as a place where we're meant to fix. I mean, that's like our entire lives. You're like, how can you fix your body? It's not good enough. It's not right. When you start to practice pleasure, there's just immense gratitude that starts to flow through you of like what your body is capable of and how much it's been doing for you. So this real sense of like, this is home starts to develop. And I love this. And then the other thing that I think is really, really important to this conversation on the arts, especially, is around pleasure's capacity to, or the ability it has to increase our capacity to feel, and especially really dark emotions that can be really uncomfortable. And we are living in a time of utter heartbreak. I mean, I think all of us are walking around with grief and anger, whether we know it or not. It is with us. So what are the tools? Like, how do we deal with this? We need tools so that that energy doesn't, either that we don't numb out and shut it out, because we all need to be present and active in the world right now, but also so that it doesn't get stuck inside of us, because that's where, I mean, dis-ease. I mean, I think there's obviously a reason that it's called that. And when things get stuck in us, they're not moving through. And I think, within us, it leads to disease. Outside of us, it leads to hatred. There's a need to move grief and rage, I'll just use those examples, through us, be transformed by them, take the wisdom of what they have to tell us, because they are also forms of love, and then take aligned action and allow that energy to actually pass through your body so it doesn't get stuck. So pleasure has this amazing way of holding us in the beauty and the safety of what it is. You can imagine listening to a piece of music that you were so moved by, and this is a practice I do all the time, just allowing that music to come through your body, noticing where it is, allowing it to really move through you, moving your body with it. And then the last thing I will say is the other really, really huge impact of pleasure is around our connection to desire. I believe that we all have a sort of blueprint in our bodies that we are even born with, and that our desires are a reflection of that. Our desires are leading us to our greatest purpose here. And we are so used to overriding our bodies that most of us are not really even in touch with what it is our bodies desire. So when we start to kind of tune into that, that becomes a compass for our own lives to guide us, almost like a light blazing forward into the future, what we want to birth, what we want to create, what we deserve. And that starts from within us as individuals, and then the ripple effect into the world is to reorder it, for it to become the dream that we envision.
Thank you, Nina.